TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, Erev Tov, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News, broadcast to you from Jerusalem. Israel projects cautious optimism regarding negotiations for a hostage release deal, which would also end the war in the Gaza Strip. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan accuses U.S. President Donald Trump of not being fair towards the internationally proscribed terror organization, the Islamist Hamas. And President Trump says his proposed outline for a deal between Israel and Hamas could lead to broader Middle East peace. Jerusalem projects cautious optimism vis-à-vis talks currently underway in Egypt's Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh, amid extensive efforts by the United States to pressure its regional partners, including Qatar and Turkey among others, to force President Trump's proposed outline upon the Islamist Hamas, aimed at securing a long-lasting cessation of hostilities and a comprehensive hostage release deal. U.S. envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, Israeli Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, Qatari Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani, and Turkish MİT Intelligence Director Ibrahim Kalin all traveled to Egypt to participate in the talks in a decisive push to try to hammer out the latest details of implementing President Donald Trump's 21-point plan. However, despite claims of accepting President Trump's outline, the Islamist Hamas terror organization has refused to accept a number of key issues related to its disarmament, as well as its role in the future governance of the Gaza Strip, believing it can somehow force its demands upon both the United States and Israel.
Believing in our national responsibility toward our people and their legitimate rights, the movement has dealt responsibly with all ceasefire proposals over the past 2 years, the most recent of which was the proposal by U.S. President Donald Trump.
Meanwhile, in Ankara, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, whose Islamist party holds the same Muslim Brotherhood ideology as the Islamist Hamas, insisted that Hamas had in fact accepted President Trump's 21-point deal, while further unabashedly contending that President Trump was not being fair towards Hamas, insisting that the American leader's approach was not realistic. Moreover, irrespective of the fact that the IDF had effectively seized its Gaza offensive the moment President Trump demanded it to do so, the Turkish leader claimed that Israel continued its offensive in defiance of the American leader's call.
Filistin Direniş Örgütü Hamas, Sayın Trump'ın
The Palestinian resistance group, Hamas, responded very positively to Mr. Trump's peace plan. Thus, it clearly demonstrated its will for peace. However, it is a fact that peace is not a single-winged bird. Placing the entire burden of peace on Hamas and the Palestinians is neither a fair, correct, nor realistic approach. Currently, the greatest obstacle before the path leading to peace is Israel's attacks. Despite Mr. Trump's clear calls, Israel continues its attacks, which undermine the positive atmosphere. If peace is truly desired, Israel's attacks must be stopped immediately.
İsrail'in saldırıları derhal durdurulmalıdır.
Meanwhile, in Cairo, Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati, in a joint press conference with his Dutch counterpart David van Wiel, voiced hope that talks to implement President Trump's deal would bear fruit.
نأمل بطبيعة الحال في تهيئة الظروف المواتية لإطلاق سراح الرهائن وعدد.
We hope for the suitable circumstances to release the hostages and a number of Palestinian detainees, as well as full access for humanitarian aid into the Strip without any obstacles. and working to reach an agreement on maps for the redeployment of Israeli forces ahead of Israel's withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. We are full of trust in the ability of President Donald Trump in implementing this plan.
دونالد ترامب على تنفيذ هذه الخطة.
Earlier, after Cairo's top diplomat met with Germany's foreign minister, Johann Wadephul, Berlin's top diplomat asserted that he remains confident about the viability to implement President Trump's 21-point deal.
Ich bleibe zuversichtlich, das haben mir alle Gespräche.
I remain confident, and this is what all the discussions showed me so far, those I had in Qatar and in Kuwait, yesterday in Tel Aviv and today in Cairo. All involved are fully determined to implement this peace plan step by step, and we are now in phase 1. The two of us just mentioned it, and we also coordinated again with the American side, with Steve Witkoff. But details must now be discussed in peace and quiet and, frankly, also in confidence.
Minister Wadephul went on to point out that Hamas's perception that the hostages they are holding captive are somehow bargaining chips is inherently false.
Hamas muss verstehen, dass die Geiseln, die in ihren Händen.
Hamas must understand that the hostages they are holding are no longer a bargaining chip, but a burden for them. I believe that once that's understood, and once that Hamas too understands that the conclusion of these negotiations opens a new future, then we have a real chance to contain this huge catastrophe. We will not be able to stop it immediately, but it is a first important, big step for the pacification of the region.
Meanwhile, in Washington, speaking alongside visiting Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney at the White House, President Donald Trump expressed his conviction that his proposed deal to cease the Hamas-instigated war against Israel could possibly turn into broader Middle East peace.
I think there's a possibility that we could have peace in the Middle East. It's something even beyond the Gaza situation. We want a release of the hostages immediately, etc. And so our team is over there now. Another team just left, and other countries, literally every country in the world has supported the plan.
Yep.
In response to a question on what type of assurances were given to guarantee that the war would not restart after the hostages are released, President Trump asserted that the United States has a lot of power to assert its will.
Well, the primary guarantee is once this deal happens, if it does happen, look, they're in negotiations right now, we are going to do everything possible. We have a lot of power, and we're going to do everything possible to make sure everybody adheres to the deal.
Meanwhile, in Washington, Israeli and American freed hostages, survivors of Hamas's October 7th massacre in southern Israel, and families of hostages who have now endured 733 days of captivity in the Gaza Strip, joined together to call for an immediate implementation of President Trump's 21-point plan.
This is a nightmare that continues. It is living in hell, not visiting hell. So one cannot heal while one is being stabbed. One cannot heal while one is bleeding. It must end before even the remotest beginning of healing can begin. We need to have the hostages released so we can move forward.
The terrorists who captured Aviva and me, both in our 60s, held absolute power over our lives. Every moment was controlled by the constant presence of weapons of many kinds, threats, and fear, threatening to kill us. As a 65-year-old man, I knew how vulnerable I was. On day 51, Aviva was released in a short ceasefire deal. We were told I would be freed the next day. For the first time in weeks, we allowed ourselves to hope that soon we would be together again, reunited with our family. But 5 days after Aviva's release, the ceasefire collapsed, and I remained in Gaza. I am here, standing in front of you today, as the result of a life-saving agreement. That agreement was secured through leaders who made it a priority, President Trump and the U.S. administration.
For 7 months, we held hope that Dad was kidnapped alive. On May 7, 2024, we received the official notice that Dad had been killed that morning of October 7, and his body was being taken hostage. Our hope was shattered.
President Trump, please don't stop now. You've brought us this far. Finish what you started, what we know and trust you can. Bring my brothers home. Bring all of the hostages home. Let this be the moment the world finally acts with courage and compassion. For those still alive who are waiting to be freed, and for those who must be given the dignity of a proper burial.
It is important to highlight that 48 hostages, 20 of them are believed to be alive, including Israelis, Americans, Germans, and other nationalities, have now endured 733 days in Hamas captivity in the Gaza Strip. Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. If you're blessed by our updates, which are exclusively donation-based, please support TV7 with a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. I would like to encourage you also to keep praying for all of the hostages in Hamas captivity in the Gaza Strip. Pray also for Christians and Druze currently under siege by the Damascus regime in southern Syria, and the Christian community that is faced with atrocities by Islamist terror groups in Nigeria. And last but not least, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Essen, wishing you once again Chag Sukkot Sameach, and God willing, until our next update, Shalom from Jerusalem.